Imagine an abandoned city atop a mountain. No one found it for centuries. The Spanish, who conquered the entire Inca Empire, never knew it existed. The conquistadors passed hundreds of meters from it, in the valleys below, never looking up. For decades, it remained untouched. But it wasn't the sword that killed it. It wasn't gold. It wasn't war. It was a disease. A disease the Incas had never seen. A disease that arrived before the Spanish, that spread like wildfire, that killed millions. Smallpox. And when smallpox reached Machu Picchu, there was no fighting. There was no resistance. There was only silence. The silent end of an empire. To understand what happened in Machu Picchu, you first need to understand what it was. And it wasn't what you think. It wasn't a hidden refuge. It wasn't a secret fortress. It wasn't a lost city. Machu Picchu was a royal estate, a royal farm, built by Emperor Pachacuti around 1450, at the height of the Inca Empire. Pachacuti was the great emperor who transformed the Kingdom of Cusco into an empire that stretched from Ecuador to Chile. He was a builder, a conqueror, a visionary. Machu Picchu was one of his personal projects, an estate for his family and his court. The word Machu Picchu means Old Mountain in Quechua. The city sits at an altitude of 2,430 meters, nestled among Andean peaks, with the Urubamba River winding below.
The complex stretches for 8 kilometers and has more than 3,000 stone steps connecting its various levels. Built with stones so well-fitting that not even a knife blade fits between them, it is a monument to Inca engineering. About 300 people lived there: priests, servants, farmers, seasonal workers. They cultivated corn and potatoes on the terraces, drank chicha made from corn, and held ceremonies for the sun and the sacred mountains. The terraces weren't just for agriculture, they also prevented landslides, a constant concern in a mountainous region. The irrigation system was so advanced that it still works today. There was no market in Machu Picchu. There was no trade. The city was self-sufficient, producing everything it needed. It was a simple life, but it was a life. It was the heart of the Inca Empire, in miniature. They didn't know the end was coming. In 1532, the Spanish arrived in Peru. Francisco Pizarro and his 160 men. They weren't an army, they were an expedition. But they had something the Incas didn't have: firearms, horses, and, most importantly, disease. The Spanish brought smallpox, a disease the Incas had never seen. They had no immunity, they had no cure, they had no defense. Smallpox spread through the Inca population like wildfire. In a few years, it killed millions.
Emperor Huayna Capac died of smallpox in 1527, 5 years before the Spanish arrived. The epidemic had already passed before the sword. The disease did not respect hierarchies. Kings and peasants died the same way. When the Spanish arrived, they found an empire already collapsing. The emperor had died. His successors were in civil war. The people were dying. The cities were empty. The empire that had dominated the region for a century was crumbling, not from battle, but from disease. Spanish chroniclers described the scene: bodies in the streets, people fleeing to the mountains, the silent temples. Smallpox was not the only disease. The Spanish also brought measles, influenza, typhus, diseases that the Incas had never encountered. Each of them decimated the population. The Inca Empire, which had about 12 million people in 1520, had shrunk to less than 2 million by 1570. In 1533, the Spanish executed Atahualpa, the last Inca emperor. The empire fell. But the Incas did not give up. They took refuge in the mountains. They continued to resist for 40 years. Their last refuge was Vilcabamba, a fortress hidden in the jungle. From there, the Incas continued to fight, hoping one day to regain power. They believed that the sun would shine again for them, that the gods would help them drive out the invaders. But Machu Picchu was not Vilcabamba. Machu Picchu was not a fortress.
Machu Picchu was not a resistance base. The Spanish never knew it existed. Spanish expeditions passed hundreds of meters below in the Urubamba Valley without ever looking up. The Spanish general and chronicler Cieza de Leon traveled through the region and never mentioned it. For the Spanish, Machu Picchu was invisible. Machu Picchu remained untouched, hidden, forgotten. But smallpox, that one, found its way. The disease didn't need maps, it didn't need guides, it didn't need weapons. The disease traveled with the people, with the merchants, with the messengers. And when smallpox arrived at Machu Picchu, it wasn't a battle, it was a sentence. The Incas of Machu Picchu must have heard of the disease. They must have seen the messengers die. They must have tried to close their gates, but the disease was already there, waiting. What happened in Machu Picchu was not recorded. There are no chronicles, there are no witnesses, there are no recorded screams, only silence. The city was abandoned, probably sometime between 1530 and 1572. Archaeology shows that the residents simply stopped using the site. They left no traces of battle, they left no traces of violence, they just left, or they died where they were. Smallpox is a cruel disease. It begins with fever and chills, backaches, headaches. Then red spots appear on the skin, which turn into pus-filled blisters. The sick suffer for days, sometimes weeks, before dying. The people who care for them also get sick, and so the disease spreads. In Machu Picchu, the residents must have seen their friends, their families, their neighbors get sick and die. They must have tried to isolate the sick. They must have prayed to the gods. They must have made offerings to the sun and the mountains. But nothing worked. The disease continued. The water sources may have become contaminated. The terraces may have been abandoned. The sick did not have the strength to plant or harvest. Hunger must have added to the disease. When the last survivors left, they left everything behind. They didn't take their pottery. They didn't take their tools. They didn't take their jewelry. They just left. The last person to close the door of their house in Machu Picchu knew they were leaving forever. The silence that followed was the end of an empire that had lasted for centuries, the end of a civilization that had built one of the largest cities in the world. The empire that began with Pachacuti ended in silence.
Machu Picchu remained untouched for nearly 400 years. Forests grew over it. The stones were covered in moss. The terraces were overtaken by vegetation. The springs dried up. The temples fell silent. No one knew it existed, except for the local peasants, who knew of the ruins but had no reason to talk about them. In 1911, American archaeologist Hiram Bingham arrived in Peru with a small team of explorers. He was looking for Vilcabamba, the last Inca stronghold to fall into the hands of the Spanish. Traveling on foot and by mule, he entered the Urubamba Valley, where a local farmer told him about the ruins atop a nearby mountain. The farmer, Melchor Arteaga, guided Bingham to the site. He climbed the mountain. He found the city. He discovered it for the Western world. But the local peasants already knew it. Their parents knew it. Their grandparents knew it. Their families had known it for generations. They knew the city existed. They knew it was sacred. They called it the old city. But they didn't have the technology or the interest to tell the world. Bingham brought the city to international fame, but he also took artifacts, ceramics, tools, skeletons that have not yet been fully returned. Machu Picchu is not a lost city. It is not a hidden refuge. It is not a secret fortress. It is an abandoned royal farm. It is a testament to what happens when an empire encounters a disease it cannot fight.
The Spanish never encountered it, but smallpox did. And in the end, it wasn't swords that brought down the Incas. It was microorganisms. Today, millions of people visit Machu Picchu every year. They climb the stone steps, take photos, marvel at the architecture. They don't think about the dead. They don't think about those who died there. They don't think about smallpox. What happened in Machu Picchu is a reminder that history isn't about battles and heroes. It's about disease. It's about survival. It's about the silent end of an empire that was so great, it was almost forgotten. The story of the Incas didn't end with a battle. It ended with a fever. Machu Picchu is the monument to that end. The stones are still there. The terraces still produce. The springs still run. But the people are gone. The sun still sets over the mountains, as it always has. But now, no one is there to see it.